else wants to say, hey? This is catching on here, so let me try for it. Anybody else here?
Michelle just said, "Hello everyone, I'm new. Sorry at work, so I'll just be listening in."
Totally understand. Thanks for being here, Michelle.
We have also Asta also. Please go ahead, Asta.
Hi everyone. This is kind of like my first time being in this Bhakti community, like joining it live. I just came across this group through YouTube through Vijayika Prabhu's channel, and that's how I got joined into it.
Asta, thanks for joining. That's what we're always hoping is to continue the conversation with an ever with more and more insight from those who join. I'm really glad to have you here. Look forward to hearing your insights also. Ashta is like 8, right?
Asta, it means faith.
Oh, how nice. Fantastic. Thanks for being here. We need a
Thank
little
you.
more of that. Okay. So, yeah, it's a free forum, so please feel free to participate at any time. Just raise your hand. I'll stop mid-sentence and you can participate. The more you have if you have realizations, feel free to offer them. So today I'll start by just giving a little warm up. If we look at the first slide, we're talking here about return to dharma. And in this series of presentations I'll be giving on set your dharma. Dharma means our constitution. We all have a constitutional position, different levels of life. We have our natural predispositions mentally, physically. That is, that some of us are inclined to be artistic, other people may be more mathematical, not that those two are that far apart. But we all have different proclivities, tendencies, predispositions, etc. And we may have a dharma or an alignment and that fits those particular physical, mental proclivities that we have. And then one of the most important alignments is we are the living force within the body. We're the driver of the body and not the body itself, to give the perspective of the Bhagavad Gita and other wisdom literatures. And we survive even this body. So what's our alignment there on that level, the level of our spiritual nature, which is transcendental ultimately to the body? And all those have to be aligned for us to be completely happy, which is the hypothesis that I'll work on today. So we're looking to setting Dharma for 2026. I always think around this time is a good time to start thinking about it, not exactly, when the calendar changes to the first of the year, but it's as good a demarcation as any, and starting early is very helpful. So align with your purpose, very much synonymous with dharma. And in the first slide, I've just given an introduction to something practical, and that's the next slide that says write your personal constitution. I switched them around a little bit, James, so don't be surprised. Uh, this is just a taste of what I'd like to do together over the next few weeks, and that is to write your own personal constitution. Now, I visited the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. I've been there a couple of times. I'm always amazed at how the Constitution, which is there on display in the library, has given some guidance to how hold together millions of people over the last couple of 100 years. And I've always had an urge to write I always had an urge to write my own constitution, because I felt that if you can hold together millions of people, you could possibly hold together your own life, I said to myself. And therefore, I set about writing my own personal constitution. Now, once I've had that, I have a document to refer to again and again, because it's quite common to be distracted, to go off track, to have contrary ideas. But once I've established in a right frame of mind what my ultimate purpose is, and I have a constitution to live by, it gives a lot of excitement and energy in my life. So I thought I'd present this process to all of you. So if it's possible, and I know I should have given you a little more forewarning, if you happen to have a piece of paper and a pen, we're not going to do it exactly right now, but if you need one to participate, I would say it would be helpful if you have one to participate today, to have a legal pad or a pad of paper, or at least a piece of paper and a pen you can write on just to start today's exercise. Is that within reach for everybody? If not, feel free to take a minute and grab something that you can write on. And don't write on your keyboard, because this is specifically a visceral activity for writing with your hand on a piece of paper, and I hope that doesn't freak anybody out. But there are studies that have been done. Who knows how, if they've been peer reviewed, but I have read studies that say writing by hand gives you a special connection, the brain to the hand. It's more stimulating. Okay, Asta went and got a piece of paper and a pen. Thank you, Asta. And let's see, is everybody else okay? Okay, Rajesh has something. Thanks, Radhakrishna. Thanks, Chloe. Okay, that's fun. You know, I did a video once, and it was about how we all have a magic wand in our life, and here it is. I happen to prefer this Pentel RSVP BK90 fine tip black. This is a magic wand, because all the things you think of that you want to become, you can manifest this with this wand. There was a television program when I was in kindergarten. It was called Alakazam, and this couple did magic tricks. And it was another saying that comes back from Romaic that dates back thousands of years, which is abracadabra. And that's actually a phrase which literally means I create as I speak. And when we write things down, our desires, our goals, our constitution, there's a kind of magic that comes into our life. And this pen can be overlooked. We think now of electronic pads and this and that, but there's magic in this. It's one of the most important human tools that you can get. So put it in a special place in your life and maybe meditate on it, that through this, you manifest all of the things that you want to come into your life. Alakazam. So these next series will be about how to write your personal constitution. And let me give you a little philosophical background to this and the idea of dharma. So let's look at these two swans. It's actually one swan in two different positions. And I got this because recently, on my way home from India a few weeks ago, I stopped in at the Govardhan Eco Village in Maharashtra. It's a village dedicated to discovering ecological ways to live on planet Earth. In fact, they have an astounding array of ecological devices, natural devices through which they purify water, where they grow things, where they recycle garbage, and there's plenty to be found around Maharashtra. They collect it and they repurpose all the garbage, turn it into usable fuels and things like that. It's quite an amazing place. They have an animal sanctuary there, which I love going to every day because I just like animals. And some of the animals that were especially fascinating to me were the geese. No, not the geese. There are geese there too. That's a whole nother story. But the swans. And so something about swans, which you may find very interesting, which I found interesting, it was a revelation, is something obvious to me is when the swan is on the water, it's effortlessly elegant, I would call it. And there are ballets about Swan Lake and so forth. And we have, I would say, I was enamored watching the swans. You can see the reflection in the water, and they're so graceful the way their necks are, the way they cohort with one another and swim around. And there's an elegance. But when they come on the shore, they are awkward. The only, of course, this subjective, ugly part of a swan is its feet. The feet come out, and then when it walks, because the feet are way in the back and it's front heavy, they have an extreme waddle, and it looks like they're struggling just to walk on land. So when the swan is on land, it's shockingly awkward, in contrast to its effortlessly elegant presence on the water. And what does this have to do with us? As we look into our natural condition, which we call the dharmic condition of a human, our natural position in the next slide. When a human is aligned with his or her purpose, they have clarity, they have energy, they do things with ease. Even in difficult situations, there's a sense of equanimity or being equipoised, which is a very highly touted quality in the ancient wisdom literatures, to remain equal in all circumstances. We have intuition, natural intuition that comes to us. You might not even need ChatGPT, although I'm not arguing against it. I'm just saying we have our own inbuilt ChatGPT. In fact, indigenous peoples who had very little contact with technology had so much intuition. They had shamans who could discern which kinds of plants gave which kind of powers and so forth. We naturally have intuition because we're part of the complete whole. We're dialed into it. Sometimes we forget that. And when we forget that and we get out of a line with our connection to the complete whole, then we feel discombobulated. You can look it up. It's a word. So then we also have flow. Flow means absorption. It means we feel like going in the right direction. And flow could describe a lot of the way that a swan moves in the water with grace and with flow. And looking in the next slide, we could say that adharmic, when you put an A in front of a Sanskrit word, it often reverses the meaning. And in this case, it's true. Adharmic means we're disaligned with our purpose. And what happens then? Confusion. We may feel restless, self-doubting, because in such cases, we don't even know who we are, materially or spiritually. We may feel clumsy in making decisions, and what to speak of relationships. And it may be a life as though we are not fitting in. And that's a matter of consciousness, and that's a matter of being aligned, is my theory I'm presenting here. And it's a theory well supported by the ancient wisdom literatures. When we're aligned, we're quite happy and we flow. When we're disaligned, adharmic life, we're clumsy. So return to the water, align your purpose. Think of the swan when it's in the water, next slide, and it's gliding. It looks effortless. Apparently it is for them. When they're out, they're clumsy. So how can we get back into our aligned position, swan-like? Oftentimes those who are fully aligned, they're called paramahamsas, which means the swan-like person who makes it look easy, who glides through difficult situations. What's more, something more, we'll go back to the room, about swans, why they're called paramahamsas, is because a swan has an uncanny ability to separate milk from water. So if you put milk into water and you mix it up and you give it to a swan, it has an enzyme in its beak through which when it drinks the milky water, it can just ingest the milk and leave the water. It comes out the side of its beak. And this represents, metaphorically, of course, the way a person who's aligned is able to take the best out of the world and leave the others behind. In other words, the world's mixed up with good and bad, or with those things that are important and not important. Does that resonate? And a person who's like a swan can then take the mixture, extract the things that are not important, and take those things which are essential for high-minded living. Okay? So let's take any comments about the swan before I move on. Means anything you heard so far that piqued your interest. Go ahead, Jam.
No, I just going to request the same thing. I think somebody came on.
Yeah, but you were
Yeah.
smiling. That means you had an idea in your head. I could tell.
I was just going to go ahead, Vicky.
Thank you. I was just thinking about how when the swan is on the water, we don't see their feet. And similarly, sometimes when I look at others who are really impressive, I'm probably just not seeing all of the hard work behind the scenes because they're in flow. And so I should take that as a lesson and also not be so hard on myself, but also just put in the work.
Nice. Extending the metaphor. Very helpful. And then when we feel flow, even though we may have some imperfection, and as Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, every endeavor is covered with some fault. Just as fire, which is the most useful element in human society, has smoke. Somebody may complain, yeah, but what about the smoke? But if you're aligned and you're using the fire, you may completely forget about the smoke. Similarly, we may miss our own faults because self-deprecation is one of the most common ways that we feel unempowered. We deprecate ourselves. But when we're in flow, it's a lot easier for us to overlook our own natural faults that come out because every person will find something within themselves that may be discouraging. Fantastic. Thanks, Vicky. Let's take two more. Sorry, I don't mean to tax you too much, but Chloe, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I think the swan analogy is really interesting because it shows me that we have places that we're naturally very good at, which is in the water. And then there are places where if we happen to be in a situation or a job or a relationship, we become awkward. And that to me is saying that there are limitations and there are natural sources of flow, and we just need to get closer to that. Instead of trying to make the land feel more like water, maybe it's just let's get closer to the water. And that's my simplistic
Yeah, the
interpretation.
simple's always best. Occam's razor. You find a simple parallel and it can be very powerful, and that's what you've done here. And it relates a lot to the philosophy of Socrates, Plato, the Bhagavad Gita, that we work best according to our natural strengths. And when we can identify our natural strengths, there's an idea of what's called varna. Varna means you have a natural proclivity, and if you're able to acknowledge that and be aware of it and work within that, then of course you can excel. Everybody's good at something. Human beings are so witty, smart, and even if somebody seems to be disabilitated in one area, it turns out if we investigate, they're highly proficient in another area. And so the idea of finding our own strength, working according to that strength, can be very uplifting. Yeah, nice. Thanks, Chloe. Let's try for one more. Not try, let's just do one more. Any reflection, thought you have about the swan or any of the points that I've made so far?
I, I was just thinking about another class where you mentioned about masks, like people wear masks. Sometimes we try to portray something which we are not. Like we have seen several popular people who are famous in social media and they have followers, and suddenly we hear stories that they are deep within broken, kind of, and do what they are projecting outside. So it's an uncomfortable for those who are trying to like fake something, like I'm a genius or I want to fit in and I'm trying to be something I'm not. It's a miserable condition internally, though externally we are projecting. And when we are interacting with people, we want them to be real. Like if we get to know this person is actually putting on something which he is not, internally he's somebody else, the trust is broken and the relationship is no longer real. So from all those perspectives, being natural and real what you are is not more light than putting on the weight of a mask and being in an unnatural environment. So I just want to relay some of the thought which you previously
Yeah,
said.
that's beautiful. Thank you. You know, that fear of being discovered, that you're not really like that or whatever. It's so much more natural. It's natural to be oneself because what else can we be? It's also mentioned in another one of the wisdom literatures called Srimad Bhagavatam. There's a term called adhikari, which means that we have a certain level that we start any skill with. And if you practice according to the level that you're qualified for, they said it's a good thing and it looks good. If you try to do more than you're qualified for and imitate other people, then it doesn't look good. And it's not necessary, nor is it effective. So being accepting of our own level, whatever it may be, and not comparing ourselves to others. One of the analogies that's given there is how birds fly in the sky as high as they're able, but the sky's unlimited. So what does it matter how high one bird goes over another? All of us have a certain capacity, and if we work according to the capacity, then we feel fulfilled and will be effective. Thank you, everybody. That was really helpful. Okay, so the next slide, which is slide number 10, is aligned living. And of course, we have assisted living, we have aligned living. And here we can mostly align ourselves. We can take help from others, but it's one of the human capabilities is to be introspective and to ask oneself questions. This is kind of a magical process when we ask ourselves the right questions and we respond to our own inner voice and in writing. And that's why I asked you to get a pen and paper. Then something unfolds in our life that is realigning. And you don't have to go to a university. You don't have to take a seminar. All this is kind of seminar-like. But taking time to by yourself without any other input, just look for the inner voice and trying this process. Here are a few of the questions that can be self-aligning. What do I value? Followed with, what are my priorities? We might also ask, what's the best investment of my attention? And we might say, what feels deeply right, even if it's challenging? So if I could ask you now, just as a warm-up, to write down for yourself 3 things on your piece of paper, 3 values that you consider to be most important in your life. For instance, sometimes people say truth, that I value telling the truth. I value other people telling the truth. I'd like to live a life where I'm truthful and I can be truthful. Or I might say one of my values is to be attentive or maybe empathetic. Think about a plethora of attitudes. And maybe somebody could do a quick search and look at a list of values, because that might help also. just look up what are the lists of common values, and we can peruse that. And then we'll just take a few minutes to write down, and it doesn't have to be perfect. In this exercise of writing your Constitution, it's going to take some time and it will take some thought and revision. So don't think this is the final thing. Once it's written, you can't take it back. We have Brene Brown has put down a list of values: accountability, achievement, adaptability. If you click on the link, you'll see that list. Authenticity. I'm just throwing out a few. Generosity, thrift, tradition, uniqueness, usefulness. There's a lot there. So you get the idea, and here's a list of a few more that we got from Ekachakra, who's joined us all the way from Colorado. Thanks, Ekachakra. Okay, how about if I give you a minute and a half just don't overthink it, but just write down 3 values that seem okay to you, that you'd like to emulate, that you'd like to live in on a regular basis. You can also amend it later, but just for the sake of this, I'm going to start you now, and I'm going to give you a minute and a half to do that.
Battery 100%. Connected to iPhone 237.
What a great use of a minute and a half of your life. Some people, as Socrates says, the unexamined life isn't worth living. Some people never think of this. But we took a minute and a half to write down our values. First of all, before you say anything about it, could I ask you, how did it feel? What was your experience of writing down your values or contemplating them and looking at a menu of values? What did it feel like for you? Sharing means caring. Refreshing, my favorite word now. You want to say anything more about that? Vicky, just give me 2 sentences why it was refreshing.
It was very centering and uplifting, and it really gave me a sense of conviction for 2026.
Okay, and now we have Janu. 2 sentences why it was reflective.
It helps you understand sometimes why you react the way you do, because it's kind of goes back to what you value and what makes you, right?
Nice. Manu said confused. Very helpful. Tell us 2 sentences why it was confusing.
I think with the list, I was thinking, where am I in this position, and where I want to move forward. So it just took some time to understand.
Yeah, it really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. It could be like a kid in a candy shop. Or if you go shopping, there's too many there's too many brands. Like you can't read the label on every one of them, although you have to. Okay, and then let's see. Sri Vidya said thinking about priorities. Rajashri said reflecting. Chloe said shame. Tell us more about it, Chloe. What 2 sentences about shame?
Yeah, I think I was looking at a bunch of values that didn't go in my list, and I feel like they're good values. Why did they not make it into my list? And I feel a little embarrassed to say that generosity didn't make it on my list, and I was just questioning myself why. But then there are three values where it just immediately clicked to be like, this is really true for me, like courage, and freedom. And I immediately thought of episodes where I feel really strongly um, vouching for these values, or when these values were trampled, I reacted very strongly.
We'll see how
Anyways, I
much
felt
comes out.
shameful that I wasn't a generous person. I want to be generous.
Well, it's just amazing how thinking about them stimulates such thought, and it becomes an edifying experience because we may think, oh, I wish I had this. And who's to say we can't develop it and so forth? Just because we see it and we feel, oh, I'm substandard in this, it may put us on another track. But it's very helpful and exciting, isn't it, to consider these things and think about them deeply. So, yeah, you said illuminating and reflecting, thinking about priorities. So now, this is just to give you a little taste of what it's like to deal with values. Uh, it's helpful to look at some lists as we did and sit with these and think about them. So this is one of the first exercises for developing your constitution for 2026. And if you could take some time to examine what values means and look at some of the values, and this is a nice list from Brene Brown of values that we may look forward to developing. Or, it's not necessarily values we have now, but it just means what we consider worthwhile, where we'd like to put our attention. The word worship, it originally comes from the word worth. And when you put ship on the end of something, it turns it into a noun. And over time, worthship, it morphed into worship. So what we consider value is that place where we worship. And so what are the values? And now I'll just give another element to this. All of these values are metaphysical. How will you measure empathy? You can't do it empirically. Empirically, you can't go to Ace Hardware and get a meter that measures empathy. You can't also, you can judge how generous somebody is, but you don't know how much they have. So are they being really generous? These values are intrinsically metaphysical. They're beyond the physical world. So looking at them, feeling them, feeling separation from them, wanting to develop them, this is also part of spiritual development. And when we become aware of the plethora of values that are available for cultivation, we can uplift our spirit, our spiritual part of life, by becoming aware of them. For instance, if I become aware of humility, which is a teaching given by one of the great acharyas, or great teachers of this wisdom from 500 years ago, Sri Chaitanya. He gave a directive about humility and how important it is. Because when we're humble, that is open to the various mysteries of the world, not closed-minded. We also don't consider ourselves the center, but we consider ourselves instrumental in doing things and also recipients of higher knowledge. Not that if we come up with something, oh, I'm so smart. No, it came to me. I'm just a receiver. I'm not the originator of these things. Intuition comes from a higher intelligence, not my own. I can be a receiver. However, And he said through humility, you can find out a lot about yourself and a lot about the universe. So he advocated for that as a starting point. And just giving you an idea of how powerful each one of these values is. If you think about generosity, think of all the lessons you could learn by being more generous. One of them is there's an ebb and flow of the universe. The more you give, the more you grow. And that's something that's not well known. It seems counterintuitive because I may think I have to survive, and the more I can keep, the more I'm going to be in good shape up until the time I leave this world. But it doesn't work like that because we're not in control of our assets as much as we think we are. We don't even get to keep this one body we think is mine. So we're in a tenuous situation, and the more we can be open to the fact that I'm a recipient and realize the power of generosity comes back to us by the revelation that we live in an abundant world. That is a kind of spiritual revelation. Okay, so that's the exercise number 1. Now let's go back to the slides for a minute. Now you have that as a starter, that piece of paper where you start to write your values. And now if you put a line under that, we're going to go to a different section. And here we have, I'm talking about aligned living, and those are some of the questions. And if JM, if you want to put them in the chat, those questions, that's something everyone can copy and keep with them. And we'll go to the next point in aligned living is, what are my priorities? So under that line, here's what priority means. The fact or condition of being regarded or treated as more important. A thing is regarded as more important than another. The right to take precedence or to proceed. So now, as an exercise, if I'm not taxing anybody too much, let's take a minute and a half, let's take 2 minutes, and write 3 priorities. Now, in doing the exercise myself, I took several weeks to do this. So it's not something you can do in a few minutes, but I just want to prime the pump right now for your consideration, and there'll be homework after this. So what you do here is think about what's most important to you in your life. What's the most important achievement? What do you regard as most important in your life? Is it your health? Is it your family? Is it being ready at the time of death to transfer to another place? You know, there are many ways you can think about priorities, but does anybody have any question before we try the exercise about the priorities? And what I'm asking you for now is to write 3 priorities. You don't have to put them in order because you can always shift them later, but just brainstorm and put 3 things for now that you consider most important to in your life. It's different than values. It's a thing, a person, a way of that something you want to achieve that's most important to you in your life, and write 3 of them. Okay, so I'm going to if you don't have any questions, I'll just assume everything's okay. And ready? Go ahead. welcome back, everyone. So, how did that feel? And did it come readily? Was it hard? Was it confusing? What did you come up with this time? Lee J, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Vaishishaka Prabhu.
Hi.
I have three things on my list. I have patience, faith, and surrender. So I think the way that I prioritize, I view the list I wrote from the previous step, and I think about what I need most improvement. And these are three things that I think I need to improve. I consider myself sometimes think too much, and I need a little bit faith to surrender. And so this is what I want to work on.
Wow, that was really helpful. It was exciting too, because just hearing how you could conceive of where you need improvement according to your own estimations, your own personal thing, and then you can work on it. It gives you new purpose in life. It's refreshing. It's like I'm waking up and I'm going like, how can I make a little progress today? Now I have a map. It's starting to unfold in my life. That's nice. Thanks, Lee J. Okay, let's take a couple more. What was it like for you? Charles, how's this all going? If you're in a place, if you're not driving your Ferrari right now, tell us how it's going, what the process feels like to you. He's driving his Ferrari. Okay, let's see, who else could we call on?
Nicholas just posted.
Nicholas,
This was
good.
this was more difficult because if we knew how to self-improve, we would be doing it already.
Yes, and that's an excellent point you make, Nicholas. However, here's a couple thoughts about how to write your priorities. Priorities doesn't mean you're already doing it or you've already achieved it. It just means that it's something that means the most to you in your life. What means most to you in your life? Is it your health? Is it your relationship with somebody? Is it something like somebody might read Bhagavad Gita and said, okay, I have to leave this present body. Am I ready for it? That might be something that someone thinks about. That's what sages think about. Is it something to do with what's a priority for me is to live in a self-sustaining way so that I don't violate other living entities, or I minimize that as much as possible. Those could be priorities. It could be I want to be a billionaire, and that way I could be more generous. That might fit with your generosity thing. These are all personal priorities. What's most important to you? Okay, Charles parked his Ferrari. Go ahead.
Okay, there it is. It's actually a Lamborghini. Just kidding.
Sorry about that.
I wish.
Anyway, it's Italian. Go ahead.
But yeah, I really liked the priorities that Luigi shared there. I think those are wonderful, and I definitely want to practice them as well. Faith, surrender, patience. But I think overarching for myself, I actually just decided to go with just one here, which is to be serious about being serious. I feel like I go on these I have these periods where I'm like, okay, like these are the things that matter in life. Like I know it deep down in my heart, I'm going to focus, but time and time again, I get distracted one way or another. So if I could even just remind myself a little bit to like just get serious about the serious things. We're reminded often when we're here that we really don't have much time. But in your day to day, it might feel like, oh yeah, just life's just going on forever. So but yeah, I want to be serious about being serious.
I love it, Charles. Here's a definition of the word serious. It says, of a subject, state, or activity demanding careful consideration or application. It also says of a person solemn or thoughtful in character or manner, acting or speaking sincerely and in an earnest rather than in a joking or half-hearted manner, significant or worrying because of possible danger or risk, and substantial in terms of size, number, or quality. So serious comes from late Latin seriosus, which means earnest, to be earnest about something. So it's also synonymous with being sincere. To me, serious. I know I'm serious about something if I get on with it. I might think about it, but unless I'm actually doing it, that's when I align with seriousness and I'm getting it done. Thank you, and
Thank you.
take care of that Lambo there. Now, what else? How did it go with writing your priority? Did you find that you're hesitant because, well, what about other things I might think of later? Or was it, what other experience did you have? Let's hear from who's got their hand up. Mayank. He might be at work. Of course, everybody's probably at work. But we're really working here, aren't we? Okay,
Yeah, go ahead.
Sri Vidya, yeah.
Um, I sort of see it in like maybe like two ways. When I'm thinking about just priorities, I feel it's more planning my time is what I feel this exercise is more about. But sort of my priority, at least going forward, is sort of doing the right thing, which you did mention there. So when I think about what I should be doing, I just feel like at every moment of time, I should be thinking about what the right thing to do is in that moment, irrespective of sort of what I'm doing. So I think that's sort of my overall goal of how I want to spend my time. But if I want to prioritize my day or just think a little bit about how I want to change things that I want to do, or just change the way I want to be. The three things that I wrote down include, the first one is giving full attention and sort of being in the moment. I think again it aligns with doing the right thing. When I'm talking to you, I want to make sure I'm not thinking about something, right? I'm not distracted with something, or I'm not doing something else. So I feel like being that again aligns with, okay, that's the right thing to do when I'm talking to somebody, I'm attending a meeting, talking to my kid, right? Can I give my full attention and be in that moment? The second thing is, this is probably my own, personal reflection, is just being okay with incompleteness. I've seen that sometimes when something is not complete, it's a nagging feeling, which is okay. But I think it's mentally being okay with incompleteness in life instead of just trying to be, complete, which is a journey, I think. So the second thing is just being okay with being incomplete. And the third thing is, again, aligning to my doing the right thing is not being judgmental and, to dive deep. When I'm answering questions, just answer to that question rather than thinking about, hey, how does it align with the person that's asking the question, right? So again, aligning to doing the right thing at the right time. So that's just my longish answer to that exercise.
Wow, amazing, great stuff. Thank you very much, Sri Vidya. Very helpful. And we've kind of come to the end of our time. One of my friends from New York said he was walking in New York and he wasn't sure where he was. And he told somebody walking along, he said, I think I'm lost. And the guy turned around and said, well, you're either lost or you're not. Which is it? So, yeah, I think we're done for the day. But we started with priming the pump. What we talked about today was that we have our strengths. We can align with our dharma. As far as our biophysiological makeup, we may have our strengths that we can align with. And as far as who we are as the living force within the body, we have an eternity to figure it out, but we have a special alignment according to the wisdom literatures that that upon considering and living more in tune with, we can naturally become happy. And the two exercises that we started with today were talking about values, writing them down, thinking about them, discussing them. And then we talked about priorities. Now, it sounds to me a lot like they kind of overlap a little bit. They can overlap, but you can think about this. This is your homework. Think more about your what values means and what priorities means. I put down in the chat box, discerning priority. What's, I should say, most important to me? Ask that question when you're putting down your priorities. What's most important to me? And if you can really think about that, and you should be confused, you should feel a little frustrated, and feel like it really makes you churn and ask questions and look at your life more carefully. As soon as you start thinking of them and writing them down, it's going to put you in another state. I guarantee it's a transitional state where you're going to start thinking about what do I really want? So if you could do this, take some time. What I recommend is you get a big pad of paper. Don't write on something small. I use these. I highly recommend it. Bienfang, mixed media, lots of room. You can even use colors and put all kinds of charts and graphs on this. Make it something big you write on. And also, a legal pad is also nice too. It's 8.5 by 13, not 8.5 by 11. It's longer, it's yellow, that's a legal pad. And it gives you a more sense of space to write down your thoughts and ideas. Please take, over the next week, at least an hour by yourself. Get a do not disturb sign, put it on your door, tell everyone, including your pets, that I'm going to be by myself for right now. Don't jump on my pad. And just really think about it. And then if you have a significant other in your life, after you've considered these things, talk about it a little bit, and you may move some of the things around. Again, it's not the final draft, but this is a process to think about over the next week. What do you think? Will you do your homework? Is it one of your values to finish your homework? I'll share with you what I've written, some of my values and things, and then we're going to do a little exercise next week because we're getting really close to the end of the year. We're going to do, along with the discussion of these points that we're working on today, we'll also talk about some goal setting, which is going to help the process along. It's another little ingredient to throw in our pot of creating our constitution that's going to help to coagulate the elements and bring them all together. And I'll also give next week a little vision into how to form your constitution, which elements you can start putting together as a framework to frame your own constitution. And at the end of this exercise, what we're going to do, everyone who finishes or doesn't finish, you can take your document, print it out, maybe on parchment or something like that, and you can hang it on your wall, maybe on bulletproof glass, and see how it feels to have a constitution on your wall that's fully present for you all the time. What do you think? Okay, well, I found out from living in the Himalaya for a little while from my yogi friends there, they have a way of consent. When they do have a meeting, sometimes the yogis come together and they have a meeting of the minds to find out what's most important in life. And when they come to a consensus about something, the way they seal the contract is they put their hands in the air and they say Hari Bol. That's how you seal the contract. So those who are going to do your homework, you're going to come back next week and we keep the project going. Please put your hands in the air and say Hari Bol.
Haribol.
Hari Bol.
Haribol.
Thanks,
Haribol.
everybody.
Thank you.
Do your
Thank you.
homework. I'll see you